Hi, welcome to Paranormal Kativity. I heard one of the most interesting things I've heard in a really long time this week, and I have to share it with you guys to see if more of you have experienced this. For the most part, I am pretty well read on different types of paranormal activity. So most of the time, if I hear about something, it triggers some kind of, oh yeah, I've heard of that before, response. This week, I was talking to a group of newer friends, and two of them talked about a shared experience that they both have been through. Neither of them knew that anybody else had ever seen it or experienced it, and I've done research online since talking to them, and I'm really having trouble finding any other experiences that seem to be just like theirs. But for both of them, they weren't even in the same state. They're both kind of out west. One's in Vegas, one's in Texas. What they saw is when they were in their bedroom, in bed, the lights would be out, and they would see a glowing orb about the size of a small kid, somewhat human-shaped, but not defined. And they would be glowing up where the ceiling and the wall meet. And they were kind of arched like that, in that crevice of the wall and the ceiling. And they would just be hovering there. And both of them said that the entity, whatever it was right near the door to the bedroom. Either on one side, the other of it, or right above it. And when one of them said it, the other one was like, yeah, I've seen that too. I see it in my house pretty often. And it was like, hold on, both of you have seen this? Because I've never even heard of this. The one girl thought that it was extraterrestrial, possibly, because it had further interaction with her past that, but it was like a one-time thing. The other girl felt like it was more of like a spiritual encounter because it's something very common that she sees in her home. So with both of them, it kind of at first reminded me of sleep paralysis. People being in bed, having very vivid hallucinations, seeing beings in their room. Now, most of the time with sleep paralysis, if you do have visions in your room, it's usually like an entity sitting on your chest, pushing you down, holding you down kind of thing. Both of them describe being wide awake. I understand some hallucinations can be so vivid that you don't realize that they are hallucinations, but for both of them, hearing their stories, I don't think that they were asleep. One of them said that she had been studying all night whenever this happened. I also thought, well, maybe it could be a hallucination triggered by lack of sleep. I know of people who've stayed up over 24 hours and had such vivid hallucinations that they thought they were real. And so I thought at first maybe it was that, but with it being a shared experience, that kind of negates that too. So I went on to kind of research other things that maybe this possibly could be or could be linked to, because I'm just trying to figure out what this is. I came across imps. Imps normally are about the size of the entity that they both witnessed seeing. However, they're kind of like chaotic neutral on the D&D scale. They're a little unpredictable, and they also usually tend to be darker in color and not glowing. And I've never heard of an instance of them floating. I kept going back to the extraterrestrial part of it. It could be, or other dimensional, because with both of those possibilities, there's so much that we don't know that maybe it is just a form of an extraterrestrial or an interdimensional being that we just don't have a definition for and can't really identify yet. I also came across the concept of thought form entities, and these are beings that are created from a lot of thought being put out there. A lot of people think that residual hauntings are basically thought form entities being personified from the person who created them to reenact whatever they had been through. This also could go to explain the phenomenon that some people feel like Slender Man is now a real character when he started as fiction, but now there are people citing it in reality. A lot of people are thinking so much effort has been put into this being, this description of it, that it's creating it into reality. With both of them, they had no real reasoning to be creating anything like that in the first place. With both of them, they just saw it, and that's just what it was. So I don't feel like a lot of energy was put towards the creation of it. It could be a form of elemental. With elementals, there are sylphs, which are air elementals, normally classified as fairies or fairy-like creatures. Now, this could be something like that. They're still small, and in stories of fairy culture, they can be different sizes, so it could just be like a child-size fairy entity appearing. But usually with fairies, they tend to be in more natural places, and I know people say that they've had house fairies and things like that. If that does exist, that could possibly be it. There's also something called paranormal mist or ectomist, and that's basically a glowing orb. So I was like, hey, that could be it. They can vary in size, they can vary in shape. The only thing was I never saw anything about it being human-shaped. And none of these describe the area of the room. It's still hovering in a very specific spot. It's like right up at the top of the wall and the ceiling. So I just could not find anything that identified that together. I also had somebody suggest that maybe it was angelic, because some people feel that if they sight something that's glowing, especially more of a golden or sunlight type glow, that it could be an angel of sorts. This also linked me into finding a whole article that was really interesting regarding blood type. With the blood type article that I read, it was saying if you had Rh negative blood, you could be considered part of the Nephilim. And according to this article, the Nephilim were a parallel race to humans, and according to different cultures, the Nephilim could be extraterrestrial or other dimensional, but the most common definition had them as fallen angels. In Genesis, it talks about fallen angels being able to reproduce with humans, and people with negative blood types are only making up 15% of people. Everybody else has positive blood types. Regardless if this is somehow angelic or other dimensional or extraterrestrial or just natural, these people in this 15% all tend to have similar qualities, and their characteristics are a higher than average IQ, more sensitive vision than their other senses, a lower body temperature, higher blood pressure, increased psychic and intuitive abilities, blue, green, or hazel eyes, red or reddish hair, an increased sensitivity to heat and sunlight, and an extra vertebrae. Maybe something in this 15% makes people more susceptible to be able to see other dimensional things, alien things, paranormal things, things that other people aren't as sensitive to. So maybe something in that has to do with why some people are more sensitive to this stuff than others. The amount of believers and people who believe in the paranormal is much higher than 15% of people. It's actually much closer to half. That kind of negates that too. So right now I'm just in this weird bubble where I'm like, there has to be other people who've seen this thing or these things or whatever it is. So I don't know if this would be classified as a new form of paranormal sighting. I know a lot of times people have shared sightings of things, like the Hat Man appears a lot, shadow people, orbs, full body apparitions. There's just so many different forms of hauntings or things in the paranormal that all have been categorized by us as best as we can to try and help us understand and identify them. I have never heard of a being that is child-sized, orb-shaped but still human-shaped, glowing, floating up above doors in the corner of a wall and a ceiling. And the fact that their sightings were almost identical is like mind-blowing. So I'm wondering, have any of you ever heard or experienced for yourself this type of sighting? If so, please tell me about it. Or if you have any information about it, maybe it's just something that I wasn't able to research thoroughly enough. If you know of an article or a website or anything that might have a clue as to what this is, I would be so intrigued, because it's just probably the most exciting and fascinating thing that I've heard in a while. This has to be a thing. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!